Now, the third paper before us is from Dr. Yasmin Nasima Parveen. She is from Cotton University, Guwahati, and she is to speak again on a novel aspect, Sankhya interpretation on eco-feminism. Ms. Parveen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected chairperson, respected my participants in the dais. First of all, I would like to thank the sponsoring committee for organizing this conference, and I'm very glad to participate here because it's my first paper with the APC. And I feel here the sponsoring committee is very nice. I felt it homely here, and I felt it like I didn't miss my home here. It's like I feel warmth here. Now, directly I'm moving to my paper. The theme of my paper is Sankhya interpretation on eco-feminism. Now, Sankhya school, which we all know, was founded by Kapila, and it was the first ecocentric school of Indian philosophy, with its acceptance of Prakriti is one of the realities, with the other being Purusha. Now, in this paper, what I have tried to present is to connect this ecocentric aspect with the feministic side of our society, which has always been there, standing by the side of nature for its protection, to fight for safeguarding its authenticity. Nature is spiritualistic and not materialistic as supposed to be in the Sankhya philosophy. This is what my interpretation is. Not, I don't want to harm any feelings of any philosopher or any philosophy. It is as spiritual and equal as that of the other reality, Purusha, as I felt. Two, I have mentioned some of the movements here to support my thoughts here that has been raised to protect the mother nature, which were initiated by our sisters. Now, as in the introduction we can see, we all know it is this school is one of the oldest schools in the Indian system, and it was founded by Kapila. This system accepts two reality, the Prakriti and the Purusha. Purusha is the symbol of intelligence and lameness, and Prakriti is the symbol of unintelligence and blindness, as we find in the Sankhya philosophy. Now, in the Sankhya system, Prakriti refers to Mother Nature, from which the entire cosmos, that is the material realm, has evolved. On the other hand, the Purusha is the spiritual realm of the cosmos. So in this paper, I've tried to establish this link by accepting Prakriti as the feministic side of the cosmos. Now I'll come to the point what ecocentrism is as found in the Sankhya philosophy. The word is used in an ecological political word denoting a nature-centered anthropocentric system of values, which was first coined by Aldo Leopold. The Prakriti is the creator of all beings. Sankhya system supports the equality of all beings, because at the time of creation, everything evolves out from this Prakriti, from the minutest element to the greatest Mahat, or the intellect, which is out of the resemblance of this Purusha and Prakriti during the time of evolution. And again, at the time of dissolution, it goes back in the bosom of it. Secondly, the Sankhya system is just and liberal in judging these, in judging its outputs, because it is the source out of which everything has evolved. It's like the veil of ignorance, the theory of John Rawls, which maintains that at the time of our birth, we are judged, not out of the characters we have, but out of the deeds that we'll perform. It is not based on any gender or caste or race or color. The second thing that I would like to point out is that the Sankhya system do not support the Varna system. Like the 4 Varnas are there, as we know: Brahmacharya, Kshatriya, Sudra, and Vaishya. Now, they support that people express their traits or characters out of their capacity to do it, to do their works. It is not out of the some traits. Yes, we accept these 3 traits of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, but it is always in a mixture. It is not separate one. That means it depends upon what we reflect. One can predominate the other one. The next point is that the Sankhya system do not support animal sacrifice. And the last one is that I feel that the Sankhya system somewhere resembles the Jia hypothesis of James Lovelock, because it is the entire cosmos we are referring here to the Prakriti. So this hypothesis of James Lovelock maintained that the entire planet Earth is like the human body. If we harm any part of it, then we are harming the other parts of the body. Similarly, if we hurt any part of the Prakriti, maybe the biotic or the abiotic section, we are harming the entire Prakriti. Here I have put these points in support of the acceptance of the ecocentrism by the Sankhya system. Now I'd like to move on to the ecofeminism as we found in the Sankhya system. The term was first coined by Francoise de Ibon in her book Feminism or Death. The ecofeminism is a woman ethics which holds feminine values for the survival of human race in the world of patriarchy. It does not try to abolish it. It tries to maintain a balance between the nature and the human system. Just like what we find in the liberal feminism, that it does not try to wash out the male side or the patriarchal side, but it wants an equality between the male and the female race. On the other hand, the concept of patriarchy is grounded in dualism, like the mind and the body, woman and culture, man and woman, culture and nature. Here, the mechanistic, the cultural, and the logical aspects are attributed to the male side, and the nature, the essential, naturalistic, the emotional, these are attributed to the female side. And this is one of the main reasons why I felt the ecofeminism has rose out, that is, it needs the realization of the essential closeness of the feminine qualities with nature for our very survival. Now, I would like to move on to point out some of the movements of ecofeminism which I have cited to hold my statement that women are always there in the favor of nature and they are very much close to it and intimate to it. Now, first starting with our own country, India, I have first mentioned here the Chipko movement in the Garhwal region of Uttar Pradesh. And the significance, I'll go short here because the time is less. The significance of this movement is that the hugging of trees. Here what happened, women from this region, they hug the trees so that the demolishers who were there to cut the trees down for the establishment of industries, they would not get a chance to cut the trees. The second movement was the Narmada Bachao Andolan initiated by Medha Patkar regarding the Narmada River in Gujarat. And the significance of this protest is that it is against the construction of the Sardar Sarovar Dam across the river Narmada, just to safeguard the environmental reasons. The next movement was initiated by, that I have mentioned here, is from C.K. Janu in 2003 in North Kerala. She's an Adivasi woman, and the significance of this protest is that she protested against the government for the breaching of an agreement between the Adivasi people and the government of providing, the latter providing the earlier 500 acres of land to each people for cultivation. And the next point here, I have mentioned some of the name of the famous ecologists and the movement, their writings. Now the next point that I want to move is, movement of eco-feminism globally. Now in the Western industrial countries, environmental movement can be divided into 3 phases. In 1970s to 1980s, it's the phase of ecological movement. It is just the realization, the phase of realization of these movements, the necessity of these movements. The second is the end of 1980s and beginning of 1990s. It's the phase of global ecological crisis. The third is the end of 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, where the phase of traditional environmental protection arose. Now, of these phases, the first that I like to mention is the Love Canal movement in the United States around 1981 by Louis Gibbs. And the significance of this protest was, it is the protest against the nearby hazardous toxics which visibly were responsible for birth defects, death issues, leukemia, and establishment of citizen clearinghouse by Louis Gibbs for the fighting against this hazardous waste. Here I would like to mention a quote of one of the black women from the southern United States that she mentioned in her quote, "You are exactly right, I am hysterical. When it comes to matters of life and death, especially my family and mine, I get hysterical." The next movement is the Green Belt movement of Kenya, initiated by Professor Wangari Maathai, Nobel laureate in Peace 2004. And the significance of this movement was to check out the fuel and soil erosion problems, the result of which was to establish a better link between human and nature and the independence of women in decision-making in small-scale and agro-based industries to make them self-independent. The next is the Woman and Tree movement of Bangladesh. Woman and Tree, it's actually a corpus of the environmental activist Farida Akhtar, supporting the ecological activities. And the significance of this movement was that women were more related with nature than that of male, and they get emotionally drove on the issues of cutting down trees for industrial reasons. Here I would like to mention, a scene that in her research, what she found is that women, for their needs, do not destroy trees in a hope that their husbands and children, if they do not look after them in their old days, their planted trees will do. By fulfilling their needs with the dried up fallen leaves and branches, and which would help them in their funeral either by graving or paring, but they do not harm any tree or part of it alive. The next is from the Sindh and the Pakistan area. The Sindh Rural Women Upliftment Group, significance of, they have hold that in the organic farming sector, women worked equally with men, and the reason of which stands the group help in aiding equal salary to women, so as to encourage them economically and to make them self-independent. The next statistics come from the Pakistan textile and clothing industry, in which out of 7 lakh workers, most of them were women and girls, they gave their 8 to 9 hours of hardships in producing the t-shirts, trousers, and so on, working in the cotton fields in hazardous condition of application of pesticides. Here I would like to quote Patrice Jones, "A movement is a process, not a thing. It refers a movement is not mere a mechanical process, but it has emotions attached to it." So so whenever we think, we should always put our experience and feelings in our rational thinkings. The next is the Sankhya interpretation on ecofeminism. Here I have put 3 of the quotations from Sankhya Karika regarding the interpretation of Prakriti. In the background of the Sankhya system. I would go through the translation only. The translation of the first sloka is, the evolution from the highest intellect to the specific elements, that is bhutas, are all from the modifications of Mother Nature. That is, everything has been produced from Mother Nature for the emancipation of the individual self, that is Purusha, and not for herself. It is like the mother who fight all odds to go for her child without any sake of losing or gaining anything. So I found here that Prakriti is like the spiritual one, and it is more close to mankind. The opposite of which, that is the spiritual concept found in the Sankhya system. The next translation is the liberal, the warmth nature, endowed all attributes, accomplished by manifold means, the purpose of the attributeless and uncaring speed of self with no gain for itself. It's just like the earlier quotation that the Prakriti works for the spirit, that is the soul, for its emancipation. But I feel that it is, on the ground of this, the position that the Sankhya system has given it, or we always find that woman is on the secondary position and men are on they're given the first preference. This thing must be changed. I think Prakriti has some spiritualness and warmth in it. The next is, this sloka is translated just like this: just as a dancer desists from dancing, having shown herself to spectators, so too does primal nature desist, having revealed itself to the self. That is the Purusha. But I feel that it is not just a mere performer who performs in the stage of universe to entertain the Purusha, as we found in the Sankhya system. This is my interpretation, but it have other interpretations also. So I would like to come in the conclusion. Here I have mentioned 3 points. The first one, that is my paper has focused, is to set a relation between nature and female side of the world sphere, keeping in concern the Sankhya school of Indian philosophy, which has no doubt remarkably accepted the prime role of Prakriti, but has faulted in keeping apart the basic role it has played in the evolution system. The second one is that Prakriti without Purusha is impossible, but what is more impossible is Purusha without Prakriti. This is what we need to accept, and this is what has inclined me in writing this paper. The next one is the role that have played by our sisters in preserving this environmental system. Nature is responsible for our fooding, clothing, lodging, and meeting each of our needs without any complaint. It is thus on our part, for both the sexes, to protect and raise voice if and when needed, standing for the cause of our mother nature. Culture is needed for our development, but what is needed more is the existence of our nature. Man is compared with culture and woman with nature. Only when nature is respected, we survive. Similarly, only when woman is respected, we respect our entire human generation. This is I have mentioned in respect with the present day society that has been going on. It is Prakriti which has given birth to the entire cosmos for the liberation of the souls, without a glance of its own for its own emancipation, which at the time of desolation will move back to it. It is none but our mother nature, the reason for which we thereby exist. Thus we have seen that from our country to the global one, there are necessity, and they have in preserving our mother nature, and which has been done by the activists. This knack of protecting the nature is there in each one of us, but we just need to realize it. I would like to end my paper here. Thank you. Have a good day all. Thank you.
Dr. Parveen presented her views very courageously. She has presented many examples from feminine side, how they have contributed in preserving the nature. At the same time, the paper also would be raising some issues. You are right that woman is respected very much. Why? Because in a way she is nearer to nature. Nearer to nature because she gives birth. and that process being an unique one, it is something so natural. But is woman merely that much? Is male a culture and a woman a nature? Are they not also competing among themselves? There are many issues arising. Are we, both of us, males and females, are we not the part of the same universe, having so many identities at the same time as well? So these questions will be there. Now, this session, before I hand over this to our chairperson, I would like that some time may be devoted for question answer. Shailesh Bhai Mehta, doctor. Come here. Achha, okay.
So rather than questions, maybe questions, but more, I may like to make it more holistic. So paper 1, talking about nature. Traditionally, we understand nature as surrounding us, plants, trees, and other things. But is nature not working within me? Who runs my all systems when I take delicious food and go to bed? Who is keeping this heart beating? So nature is not limited to traditional understanding. The holistic science says nature is evidence is within and around me. So how does the nature operate? It works according to scientific circumstantial evidences as per the set natural laws for all animate and inanimate objects within and without. So is nature independent? Is nature all powerful? No. Nature is nothing but a cumulative echo of the human projections. So whatever I have projected as bhava karma or decisions or projections go to the natural system, and natural system is nothing but an organized dispensing system to give the effect or result as a given time, just like a very vast land computerized system. And we have the individual computer, Vyasti and Samasti, Vyaktigat and Samastigat. So today, whatever imbalance and the things which are being seen in the nature, what is it? The holistic science says that if we look within, there are earthquakes and tsunamis within human minds and human projections. So nature is just balancing out the things. It is our own echo which the humans have projected inside. So I think to correct the nature, the holistic science and holistic scientist again comes focus, first starts with individual, that what is my nature or our nature right now or ecology. We all sitting in this hole, affecting each other, enjoying or sending vibrations to each other is right now our ecology. So it starts with inner pollution or inner purification. Outer pollution is secondary. My inner pollution or inner purification goes out, and what touches me is nothing but my invited nature. There may be anything and everything. The holistic ones, enlightened ones live in the same world. But when their inner nature becomes pure, when they get aligned with the harmony, around them nature is harmonious. So much so that around them nothing imbalancing occurs. So I think what we can change and what we should change in nature has to have the expanded understanding, not just what we understand outside. It starts within me and goes, radiates outside. And ecology, ECO is nothing but ECHO, ecology also. It's the echo of the combined or cumulative human projections. Coming to the second paper, Dr. Prakriti, Miss Prakriti, whatever, I say doctor in being, that's all right. So I just mentioned in the morning about the beliefs. Fine, nicely brought out. Now we go ahead. What the science and scientists are trying to study is physical as well as some metaphysical aspects, which they can monitor or measure. Now holistic science goes beyond that. What really is to be changed and what can we change? So it is my understanding, my thoughts from where they arise. It's all right that I'm noticing that change of beliefs and thoughts will be affected, leading to change in genes. But the matter starts there, it doesn't end there. Now what should I do to have the positive effect on my genes? And how can I change my belief system? How can I change my thought system? How can I change my understanding system? Very easily. Before brain changes, my understanding changes, my inner decision and projection changes, and brain is the carrier. I think I wanted to make it more holistic. And the third paper, I don't want to have any negative comment, but my primary understanding is it not natural to accept as it is male and female? If you understand the natural requirements and they are synergistic and complementary to each other, why do we segregate feminism and masculinism? That is one aspect I want to bring out. And second aspect, Purush and Prakriti is said in a different way. Even the male photographed, I have this as a Prakriti, it's said to be a female and the pure self is said to be male. Your Prakriti, even though it is a female photograph, you have the Purush as a pure self. So it is not in the context of male or female photograph, it is in the context of pure self versus Prakriti. And in this universe where the living beings are there, both has to have together unless I transcend the Prakriti and get liberated. Thank you very much.
Please give your name, your introduction name.
Yes, I am Professor G.D. Sumanapala from the University of Kalani, Sri Lanka. It is not a question. Anyway, I am agreeing with the scholar who has explained now. You know, one thing I have to ask is that many of the scholars who presented their ideas, they referred to the original sources. Bhagavad Gita, Aranyaka, Upanishad, but no one uttered even a single sloka in Sanskrit. Why? You are Indian, right? It's very big. You are depending on others' translation. Many of the translations are wrong. They are not correct. And the other thing is that Prakriti Purusha Mahan Buddhi Ahankar. You know, I have published books on this. My interpretation is that Prakriti, Purusha and Mahan, from Mahan, Buddhi and Ahankar. Actually, Prakriti is the original primordial cause. Out of it comes two things, intellectual and emotional. Right? That the environmental pollution, etc. holistic approach is impossible because people have no heart. That means emotional aspect. The other one is intellectual aspect. I think I will cite only one saying of the Buddha in India. Vanang chindata ma rukkang. Cut the forest, but don't cut the trees. You know, there is no what we call forest. It's a collection of trees. No, it's a concept. As that scholar mentioned, concept should be destroyed. Then the trees are remaining, right? Cut the forest, but don't cut the trees. That's my answer.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have just a couple of comments to make on the comparison of the eco-feminism with the Sankhya system of Prakriti and Purusha. The first thing is it's always fascinating to see the feminine names are given to all the rivers in this country except Brahmaputra. He is not, he's not Brahmaputri, but Brahmaputra. Okay, that is the only masculine name given to any river. Likewise, all the trees are given, especially the feminine names, but the mountains are seldom given any feminine name, you know, they are all male, mountain principles. Anyway, there's a side point. The thing is, if you want to contrast the Purusha and Prakriti as a kind of a male-female principle, the male-female principle, both of them, as that pointed out, the environmental disaster which we see, it's all to be attributed to Prakriti alone, not the Purusha. Purusha does nothing. It's a pure consciousness, you know. So it is the Buddhi, Ahankara and all those things are evolutes of Prakriti. So that you cannot, so both the female and male principles are contained within Prakriti itself. So you have to separate not so much the Purusha and Prakriti, but within Prakriti, where do you draw the line? So you draw the line on the one hand with the Buddhi, Ahankara, especially the Ahankara probably is a bit good contrast with the other aspects of Prakriti. That is one of the things I want to make.
Thank you for good observations by Dr. Mehtaji, Suman Palaji and Professor Pappu. We have now little time. Our chairperson also is to speak not only to observe the points and also to present her paper. I request Madam Vedika to come and present her paper and observations.
Just 1 minute, sir. I would like to give one correction simply. Yasmin Parveen, she is not awarded PhD. She is a research scholar of Cotton. This is a humble correction.
Thank you, Professor Vyasji. Eminent personalities, distinguished scholars, Professor Mishra, academic consultant of APC, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. After listening to our three interlocutors and deliberations, reflections from the floor, it can be admittingly be said that life's ideal can be reached only when it is understood comprehensively. Knowledge of the inner world is as much significant as that of the external world. The whole universe is therefore to be accepted in its totality. The Vedas extol yat pinde tat brahmande. Man as a macrocosm is just a part of the huge macrocosm. One must therefore have the view of spirit as ubiquitous principle in treating with and enjoying our needs with the things that nature provides as gifts or fruits of its care, and not by destroying or polluting or by other sorts of exploitation. Hence, I think that the practice of spiritual ecology, which comes close to the scholar here who mentioned about the inner holism and the external holism, would not only help in cultivating our conduct vis-à-vis the flora and fauna, but also for overcoming the crisis and fear of a risk against living on Earth. And this precisely justifies as to why today we are here meeting on an international conference on holistic living and thinking. Along with equipping the younger generation with the 21st century thinking skills, I believe that our millennials should be made aware of holistic living as a sine qua non condition for peaceful living and sustenance, and therefore a need for applied philosophy, touching upon the axis of innovation, sustainable development geared towards human progress is primordial. To a large extent, our interlocutors have touched upon these axes, from classical Indian thinking, Vedic extollations, to an attempt to make an interdisciplinary and present and scientific approach to the aspect of ecofeminism. They have all presented their ideas in a very lucid manner and been very insightful. So I'd like to add that thinkers all over the world down the decades have responded differently on the issues of human obligation to forces in the biotic domain and the natural environment as well. Human behavior to environment is evaluated mostly on the basis of three main ethical beliefs. Firstly, it has a utility value, which implies that environment is naturally given for man's enjoyment. Secondly, it has an existential value, that everything in nature constitutes its perfection. Everything has a place in the universe. And thirdly is the blend of the first two, that is utilitarian value and existential value, which considers that the non-human species have utility and existence regardless of their usefulness to human beings. Ladies and gentlemen, along with scientific and technological advancements, one should pave the way for moral sustainability and spiritual progress. And to achieve this, an intercultural connectivity among people is much needed, as narrow parochialism and pluralistic tendencies have caused enough damage to human civilization. It is a time for us to sink differences and spread the concept of universal brotherhood. And this could be achieved by deviating from absoluteness and by promoting contingency, paving a way for holistic and peaceful living. And therefore, the rationality of a man and that of a nation is to be determined in proportion to cultivation of attitude and treatment of other and not vice versa. Since we are talking about holistic living and holistic modes of thinking, I would like to highlight certain ideas from my paper entitled Intercultural Narratives from the Rainbow Nation, that is the island Mauritius, sinking borders and expanding identities. As you might be aware, that Mauritius is a small island situated in the Indian Ocean. Yesterday, one of my colleagues from the Mahatma Gandhi Institute gave a very detailed description about the historical development of Mauritius. I would therefore not be repeating the same thing. But in my paper, I contend that Mauritius, which is popularly known to be a multicultural society, herein I propose that we should move towards from a multicultural perspective to an intercultural connectivity. Now, what do I mean by intercultural philosophy? Certain characteristics that I would like to very quickly point out is that interculturally or interculturality-oriented philosophy will have to deconstruct the conception of otherness by which other philosophical traditions ought to be encountered on their terms by, again, deviating from absoluteness while promoting contingency. Interculturality could be a dialogue or a polylogue, but can never be a monologue. Interculturality is tolerant to plurality and seeks for overlapping structures that make communication across traditions and cultures possible, while at the same time it allows each to retain its individual character, which implies a plural understanding of cultures, values, methods, and modes of thinking. Moreover, interculturality is not the same thing as consensus, but consensus is a matter of agreement. Consensus builds on an idea of one truth, one good, and one morality. In addition, interculturality is neither comparativity nor complementary. Comparisons run the risk of evaluation, and to evaluate a standard is required. The dilemma will then be who sets the standard and by what criteria. Complementarity also runs the risk of instrumentalizing the other. It can be deduced that interculturality does not just describe today's cultural encounters, but offers the norms that could characterize such encounters for better understanding across cultures. Hence, interculturality is descriptive as well as normative. It is an overlap and space for creativity. It means changing perspectives and positions to see the world differently. Changing perspectives involves the recognition of the other's perspective as having a worth of its own terms. That means interrogating the other culture in the face of one's culture. In each case, it requires that the other be allowed to respond to the questions. So, while in the discussion of interculturality, philosophy has a great prominence because philosophy is that area where the question-answer is given much importance. So primacy of question is central to intercultural philosophy. The hypothesis is that since philosophy constitutes efforts to answer questions, then the task of intercultural philosophy is to ask questions about the questions for which world philosophies seek to answer. So on my last notes, I'd say that questioning for an intercultural perspective provides the ground for an authentic polylogue among world philosophies in the light of contemporary constellation of philosophical problems. The idea of intercultural philosophy also implies not simply an acknowledgement of world philosophies, of which necessitates pluralism of philosophies. Rather, intercultural philosophy with the tool of primacy of question, contrary to consensus, comparativity, complementarity, and alterity should possess plurality, ability to live with dissensus, search for understanding. To reach an understanding is not merely a matter of putting oneself forward and effectively asserting one's own point of view. Rather, it is a process of transformation into a communion in which we do not remain what we were. Asking questions protects the questioner from making a mistake, assuming his or her cultural basis as a given standard. One could say that questioning liberates the interrogator from the fixity of stereotypes and prejudices in asking questions. We recognize the culture as a subject, a partner, a qualified source of information, especially about the subject matters, himself, herself, or his or her culture. The pooling of knowledge and resources and values related to social sustainability, conflict transformation encourages reflexibility about identities and builds a shared epistemic field on pressing existential issues of common concern, such as ecology and the reduction of violence. And intercultural approaches confront experiences of time and development within the modern narrative of progress, and also integrate a richer array of moral learning goals and human society. With this, I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
I thank Madam Vedika for chairing the session and presenting her views on how to achieve harmony among intercultural issues. I also thank the speakers and all of you as well for successful conclusion of this session. We need 15-20 minutes for tea break as well before we begin our next session at 4:45 here only, where Professor A.P. Dupe, who is sitting here, will be chairing the session. Meanwhile, I request the president of this institution, Sri Vasant Bhai, to come up and give memento on the behalf of institute to the speakers and the chair.
They are talking about feminine, ladies, Dada says, mother is the university for all child and to whom they teach. So you are getting one certificate. You are not a female, but you are the University of the Holistic Science Research Center. Jai Sachidanand.